Under President Bush, the SEC could do nothing while companies that were supposed to rate the safety of bond and derivative investments offered by other companies instead cut deals to falsely inflate those ratings. Our fourth story tonight, new email trails suggesting the people who were supposed to provide oversight, were by law unable to stop that second group from being paid off. This, as a separate probe of the Bush-era Securities and Exchange Commission, shows some of its key people did spend their taxpayer-funded days watching pornography. In a hearing room on Capitol Hill, former executives from Moody's and Standard & Poor's testifying today that they pushed their analysts to award safe ratings to investments, even when those investments were, in fact, risky. Management having placed that pressure in order to keep earning the fees paid by the investment banks. Analysts saying they felt they faced a choice: continue to give falsely inflated ratings or quit their jobs. Senator Levin of Michigan, chairman of the committee that held the hearing, calling the entire system an inside job.
The credit rating agencies were operating with an inherent conflict of interest because the revenues they pocketed came from the companies whose securities they rated. It's like one of the parties in court paying the judge's salary, or one of the teams in a competition paying the salary of the referee.
The SEC's oversight of the credit ratings agencies now limited, the agencies having escaped legal liability by claiming they are protected by the First Amendment right to free speech. Republicans in Congress, meanwhile, using their First Amendment right to free speech to push for something, anything with which to discredit the SEC, and by extension the Obama administration. Yesterday afternoon, Senator Grassley making a request of Inspector General David Kotz's office, quoting from the Iowa Republicans' letter in which grandma is not mentioned once. In your semi-annual reports to Congress, you have indicated that your office has investigated several instances of SEC employees inappropriately accessing pornographic materials from their government computers. In order to help determine whether there could be a systemic problem at the SEC, could you please provide a more detailed, comprehensive summary of these types of cases over the last 5 years? The Inspector General replying almost immediately, and he could, because the documents that have been available on his website all along. He said that his investigations had netted nearly 36 instances in which SEC employees had used government computers to access and download pornography, when they should have been, keeping the economy from the brink of collapse. The Pulitzer Prize-winning ProPublica pointing out that it first had reported on some of the Inspector General's findings in 2008, 2 years ago during the Bush administration. Nevertheless, the release to Grassley made public and trumpeted as an entirely new revelation about the Obama-era group. Congressman Issa of California widely deriding the findings as, quote, nothing short of disturbing. The same California Republican who earlier this week wrote a letter to the SEC chairwoman saying that the Goldman Sachs lawsuit neatly coincided with the White House's push for financial reform. Let's call in Ezra Klein, who blogs about economic and domestic policy for the Washington Post. Ezra, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
All right, a system in which analysts are paid for their reviews by the companies they are reviewing. Does it take a genius to figure out that that was a system waiting to be abused, and spectacularly so?
No, it doesn't. And I actually thought Senator Levin underplayed the situation. It isn't just as if they are paying off the people who are grading them. They can also choose another grader. I mean, it would literally be like if in high school you wrote your own test, filled in the answers yourself, and then gave a teacher $100 to grade it, and if you didn't like it, gave another teacher another $100 to grade it, and that's how teachers made their money. So one thing that should be clear, we haven't dealt with this in the bills. For reasons that I think a lot of people are confused by, we have not fixed this fundamental conflict of interest in the bills. And this is really important because of the way these investment banks work. They outsource their thinking to these ratings agencies. They all looked, they said AAA on the bond, and they went with it. So getting these ratings right is really important.
So AAA is a brand name when it comes to bond
AAA
ratings.
is the good housekeeping seal of approval. It means that it is as riskless as a Treasury security. And they were putting AAA on all those subprime securities. They were saying the subprime things that blew up the economy, they had virtually no risk to them. That's how bad it got.
The Republicans who spent most of the week about questioning the timing of the Goldman Sachs investigation and the lawsuit, is the timing of Mr. Grassley's request about pornography suspect as well?
There's certainly an effort being made by some folks here to discredit the SEC in retaliation for the Goldman suit, which I think brings up two interesting points. One is that why do Republicans feel the need to be on the side of Goldman Sachs in this particular question? And number two, it isn't clear exactly what they're getting at. Even if you did prove the SEC timed its release, which they say they didn't, even if you did prove it, it isn't material to what people are concerned about. The reason the issue is a very big deal is because it shows what these Wall Street banks were doing. It shows how they were playing the game, and it shows how much they were rigging it, or at least it appears to do so based on the SEC's case. So even if the SEC is trying to hype their findings here, that's really, really getting a little bit off track when what the country is worried about is looking at these guys who crashed the economy, and we were letting them do this sort of thing. Right. This is how it was working.
And the effort to finally start to fix that begins Monday night. The senators are finally supposed to vote on whether to move forward on the Wall Street reform bill. This past week, it looked like a deal was inevitable because the Republicans had realized they need to be on the winning side of the issue. And today, now suddenly the deal's looking precarious. The Democrats have to make concessions. What's happening with the bill?
One thing I learned during healthcare reform is I don't speculate on meetings that are ongoing. We'll probably know on Monday. I'll just say one side thing that is concerning me a little bit here. We moved so quickly on this bill from when it was introduced, it went through committee with no debate, got down to the floor, and now we're already talking about deals that we don't know about going on with it. I'm not necessarily one who thinks that you need 10 months, 12 months, 18 months in front of it, on the headlines to do these things, but we really haven't even debated the fundamental Dodd bill. This is moving to a deal a lot quicker than I think the public or the legislators are understanding the bill or are getting a chance to really say, is this the right theory for how we want to regulate this industry? I'm not saying it's a bad bill or a good bill, but we're talking deals, and I don't think people even know what's in this thing yet, even the people who need to vote on it. And I do think that's a problem when we're dealing with something as big and as important as financial regulation.
Just terrific. Ezra Klein of the Washington Post and Newsweek. As always, great thanks. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.